I am joined today by Anne Laure Jackson, the legendary sensory specialist who we have on every week, but not for the last few weeks. Hello, Anne.
I have never been described as a legendary before. Oh, you just never know what's going to happen on this program. Lovely to be here. Good morning, afternoon, evening.
Hello. So we've been away for a little bit because if you've missed it, Pure 24/7 Radio has moved. We are now in a new location. This is my new Studio 3 for interviews, which is really cool, but also exciting. You haven't moved, but you've gained a new space.
I have gained a new space, the Santé Sensory Space. No, the Santé Sensory Centre. So there is now a centre, first time ever on the island, that there is an opportunity to get therapy, actually hands-on, direct sensory integration therapy in the centre. But we're also exploring how we can use it to just be a blessing to the community. And for folks, at 6 o'clock in the morning when they're tearing their hair out and they haven't slept and their little one has been up for hours and they just need to get out of the house before work, before everything else happens. So there's just a facility for people to be able to access. I'm not saying it's going to be open all hours of the day. I haven't thought that one through yet. It is brand new. But it's just, it's really interesting and exciting to see what that space can now be used for good and to really help people.
So some big changes for you, some big changes for us, but some things don't change, which we are still here on a Thursday at the moment, talking about sensory health. And I wanted to just touch into moving house, which is what we've done. We moved house, we moved studio, because I wanted to work through some of the sensory implications of that. One of the things that I chatted to my boys about is when they do their endurance program. What happens when you need to push yourself beyond what you know is healthy? Because sometimes you have no choice, but you go beyond what you know is okay because you've got to get something done. Not like a danger situation. We're not talking about panic, World War III. But when we're moving house, you've got a deadline and you can't think, I'm tired, I'll have a sit down. You must keep going. So I just wanted to talk through some of that and some of the kind of, I suppose, recovery as well, best for that. So just to give, just sort of paint a picture for the sake of this conversation, really. So we moved house. We were given less than a month or 2 months to move. We found a house. We moved. All the stress and strain which people may well associate with moving, because you've got to pack boxes, you've got to find tape, you've got to find somewhere to live because we rent a house. So the implications of all that, I think it would just be interesting to touch upon, because moving house is one of the single most stressful things, on top of which we're also moving our radio studio. And here's the first one. So moving radio means we haven't been able to do any radio for a couple of weeks. And I've really missed that. And when I heard Joe's voice on Sunday for the first live show, I actually cried. And I kind of figured that was a sensory thing.
I think it's a combination of a whole load of things, but that voice, hearing that auditory and seeing the impact, that the combination of what that does for someone, to hear someone's voice live and fresh and new with everything that you've gone through, and thinking that we are here, we have gone through, we have battled through, we have persevered through a lot of stress over the last number of weeks to bring this together, and just having that beautiful auditory impact of saying the sound is good, her voice is there, I know that this is what we do. It's all of the memories that come along with, and all the associations that come along with hearing her voice the way that she did. And I totally understand. I totally get it.
We did try and manage certain things. We tried to have, I suppose, a bit of an escape room emotionally. So when we did hit a wall of, we really, really must stop now, we just took 10 minutes. We had a quieter space, or we'd watch, and, we were a box set of Friends to watch an episode, just anything that was nothing to do with moving house. And I guess that's probably a sensory response in one level, which I wouldn't have seen before we did these sessions. But that was probably a sensory response to, we just want something that isn't to do with moving house.
Yeah, and that isn't going to assault your senses any more than you already have. We've got new sights, new sounds, new smells, new different ways of being. Even the way you put, how you get to move up and around the table in the kitchen. You get familiar with the little movements that you make to get in. All of that motor memory, all of that motor planning, all of that because it's your space. Your body is very accustomed to even getting out of bed in the morning, which way you get out of the bed, how you tilt, how you turn, what vestibular position your head is in. All of that changes on those really basic sensory levels when you move somewhere else. And it's finding areas where actually, if you are watching something that is familiar, you know what they're going to say, especially if it's a box set of something, you know what they're going to say, who's going to say it. You can trust the music, you can trust the language, you just trust it. So your whole arousal levels, your whole stress levels can reduce because you are familiar with the sights, the sounds, and the smells, and presumably, you're watching it from a seat, and your body is comfortable in that seated position, or you might be lying down or whatever. But all of the sensory experiences in having that downtime are important, and we will probably, I think your brain will have probably found what it needed without you consciously thinking, right, what body position do I need to be in? What smells do I need to have? What, how loud do I need to have the TV? All of those things you will have done instinctively, I imagine. But it's curious, how did you sit? Were you, like, looking back now, can I ask you, what position were you in watching those things or doing those things? Were you, tell me about the sensory experiences that you were putting yourselves in.
So in a sense, one thing didn't change. We had some armchairs, we had a settee, a sofa, and it was our usual TV. We had, a little table by it. And so that environment, we basically almost exactly identically replicated when we moved house. So it was the same sofas in the new lounge. But some of the differences were sound travels really easily in the new house, which is odd because the walls are so thick we can't get Wi-Fi anywhere. And yet the sound travels. So we've had to, like you say, the sound, Peter came down, the TV is really loud. And it really, really wasn't. But all of a sudden it's translating to the house so much better.
Right.
Not in a good way. So, we were in a normal position. In the past, we had a laptop propped on top of a stool so we could watch something. We hooked up my phone so we could watch, I think it was a bit of... what did we watch? A bit of House, I think, from a long time ago. And we just watched that, and it was just something to focus on that was different. But but this time we created an identical lounge between the last house and the new house.
Right. Are you aware? Yeah, because the position of what head position that you're in, some people like to be slightly at an angle and watch the TV. Some people will have put their sofas right in front of it. If you, and the distance apart as well, so for your eyes to, the convergence and the divergence that it needs to be able to focus on the screen. Are you do you think you've set it up in a similar, that might depend on your room, and that's where environment can impact that.
Opposite. No, you see, because we got two sofas, and two of us like one and not the other, and vice versa. And we got one like wingback chair, which one of us likes. So we've still got like a double settee and an armchair and a double settee in an L shape. But actually, the two sofas have flipped, and the TV is now on the opposite side. So I used to look to the right. Now I'm looking to the left. That's an interesting one. Yes, it's not identical. It's funny what I thought was the same that isn't.
But also, for some people, they would need it to be. And that's that flexibility within your sensory processing, within your sensory integration, that it feels the same. It feels similar enough for you to not recognize that it's different. But actually, when you pay conscious attention to it, it's just like, oh, wow, actually, no, it's flipped around. It is a different experience. But some people, to protect their sensory health and to help them to function better, would need the exact same setup.
Here's two more. So as you come out of the bedroom, either me and Joe or Peter, there's a tiny little hallway about 4 foot long. We turn right or left for Peter, and there's a small step down with a banister in front of it, which freaks me out for a few days, because if you're a bit tired and groggy going to the toilet in the middle of the night, you have to go down a step, which is actually unexpected, because we had an ensuite before. Now we don't, which is fine. But that really threw me. I actually did the first day. I sort of not stumbled, but I thought, I need to be careful here, because there's a banister and a hole and a drop. And I actually put my hand on a wall, so I felt something solid that was vertical, so I could kind of know where I was. And again, I'm seeing that now as a sensory solution to a problem.
Absolutely. And that is where you'll have people whether they're in school, whether they're in office, at home, and they do that during the day. There are obvious reasons why. If it's during the night, it's maybe a bit dark, it's an unfamiliar place. You need to pay more attention, that cognitive attention to the environment, so that you can protect yourself, because most of our senses are there to protect us. As a very foundational level, but and people are still going, they still run their hands along the wall. They still have to hold on to things. They're still holding their parents, even when they're not 2 or 3 anymore, that they're much older. But it's that sense of, where is my body? And they need to do that because they don't have that proprioceptive integrity on the inside to know where their body is and to feel comfortable and just walk without that extra tactile awareness coming from outside, or that extra proprioceptive input to give them that sense of where they are in space. So yeah, that's definitely a sensory thing. And also that sense of not knowing that motor plan. Whereas again, when we do things again and again and again, we have the repetition in our brain of, okay, yeah, we know we walk 4 steps. If we've got an ensuite, it's kind of like 4 steps out the bath or out of the bed, and into the bathroom, and then you do your thing. And all of a sudden, you've got to go down a step, you've got to turn around, you've got to go into the next place. There's a lot more planning of your movements that you've got to do, that you need to train to become automatic. So you will be very conscious, and and that's why it's more tiring. It's really tiring moving house. Mm-hmm. Also because of the amount of everything is new, and your brain has to pay attention to every single thing again. It hasn't habituated. It hasn't been able to just put it in the memory banks, put it in the stores, put it in the motor memories, put it in all of that stuff that enables us to function more easily. You have to pay attention to every single thing that you do and how you do it. And yeah, it is a tiring process. It really is.
Here's another one for you. So we moved into a slightly bigger house. It's got the rooms we've got are all slightly bigger. And I got really agitated one day because we couldn't work out how to put furniture into a room. And the reason is, every other house we've ever had in, there's literally probably just one logistical plan that you can have. Like, the bed has to go here, the wardrobe has to go there. It can't go any other way because it's not going to physically fit. All of a sudden, we've got choices. And I've got really agitated. I was really tired, but I got really agitated because I didn't know how to do the layout of a bedroom or a lounge or whatever, because all of a sudden we've got options. And I found those options just a little bit stressful, because we all found it actually at one point, because now we haven't got to do that. Now we could choose to do A, B, C, D, or E. And actually that was quite overwhelming in a way that I had never anticipated.
Yeah. Choice is both a blessing. I'm not going to say it's quite a curse, but it is a lot to be able to handle, to be able to make several choices. And it's really not nice. And especially for those who have particular needs, we have to limit the choices to 2. Some people just want to be told what to do, where to go, when to do it, and they are so happy, and it is brilliant. Most of our people, we want to try and give them, develop that choice ability, that ability to make choices. So is it this or is it this? Is it this first and then this, or do we want to swap the order? There's different ways of doing it, but we try and limit choices, but we give them choices to 2, because then it's an easier thing to do, rather than just being directly telling them what's what. And some people might feel disempowered, or they might feel as though they're being controlled. Choice is a really interesting thing. But if you have too much choice, goodness me, that can be really overwhelming. And it's just like, I really don't want to, do I have to make a decision on this? There's so many things, so many ways it could be. And you just, you choose what you do, and you stick to it for a while, knowing that you can change things. But yeah, too much choice for sure is overwhelming for most people, I would say, actually. And there comes a point where actually, I don't care. You get that tiredness, and you are just worn down, and it's just whatever, or somebody else make the decision. And that's what has to happen sometimes too. But normally, if anybody is in that situation, I would always give a choice of 2. If your individual can't make choices, or if you want to kind of like ease them so they're not so tight in that they have to choose, or they have to be told what to do, then let's work with 2 choices and say, okay, we'll either do this or we'll either do this. and then work with two choices is basically what I'm saying.
So here's another one for you. We've put the TV in a particular place in the lounge, and I've routed cables into the back of the TV. We've got a DVD rack and a stereo behind it with a gap. So you can now walk behind the TV, you can take a DVD out, or you can play the music on the stereo. So as part of that, I wanted to tidy the cables from a safety point of view, because you don't want to trip over it, but also because I like tidy cables. I've been involved in sound for a long time. I don't like jumbles. But I found myself for about half an hour, 45 minutes, absolutely elated and content, lying on the floor, taking all the cables out, ripping everything out, and then just very neatly, carefully rerouting all the cables. So it's this one nice, perfect stream of a cacophony of cables. What's going on with the senses that I found such enjoyment in trying to pull a plug and unravel cables that have been knotted and just got stuck together? Why do I particularly enjoy that? Because that makes me feel like I'm a bit weird.
No, I think it's great. We are creatures of order. We've been given our sense of order. It's like that is part of who we're created to be and how we are. And I think it is beautiful when we can create order from disorder. There is a lovely,
it was disorder.
A basic satisfaction in that. But I think there is a lovely, from a sensory perspective, there's lovely, like that fine motor gives you feedback. I think it's more of a visual thing, though. It's that sense of being able to see that order, and also to know that you can trust where the cables are going. It's just beautiful to have things in order. It's the same way that I love watching house programs. I love watching those programs where things turn around from bad to good. It's definitely one of my loves in the household, and I often think, why do I enjoy this? But it's the sense of creating something beautiful to see visually, and creating order out of disorder. It's a lovely thing. I think mainly visual from a sensory perspective, but there's so much more again that goes with it, because we're fully complex human beings. But yeah, I can appreciate how your wires would be beautifully lined up, and yes, gorgeous.
They are now. So, and on the back of that one, actually, we've got two desks in an office. It's like our studio too, and we've got some lights and we've got some computers. So I wanted the lights to always be on if they wanted to be, and the computers to be switched off by a wall should we want to. So we've spent about 25-30 minutes last night doing the same thing. I rerouted all the plugs and all the cables in the office with two sets of computers. There's routers, there's phones, all sorts. So there's one plug which powers things that should never be switched off, and there's another plug socket which then powers all the things that we might want to switch off at night. And there was a real sense of satisfaction of, I can't see a jumble of cables, but I really thought I was weird for that one.
No. And I think anybody who works in any form of, especially the complexity that is involved in running radio, in producing something, media, the quality, when you care about the quality of something, it's really important that you know what lead is where and how it fits, but also that it's going to function well. I did a recording almost 20 years ago, and the recording studio, I'm not going to name who they are, they're just lovely people, but unplugged, switched off something that made me lose a whole album of music.
No.
Yeah. And the backup stuff had happened to the backup that they had. So it was one of those issues where I was physically sick because I couldn't believe the months of commitment and the instruments and the recordings and the folks that we had in to do this because they switched off the wrong plug. So, and that was that. So I think your sense of order, I would have been very glad to have you as my sound engineer, or as my, doing the recording, because it was a full album. I mean, we released what we had, but it was all mixed, and it wasn't what it could be, but it was an offering, and that's what we had, and that's what we gave. But no, I would definitely want someone like you on my team who will pay attention to those details. Yeah.
Well, it matters though. It really does. I mean, we've got a black plug and a white plug. Don't ever turn a black plug off. The white one can be switched off. It's really simple.
Oh, and that's even better. Sorry, the fact you've even said you've got black and white. There you've got your visual guides too.
Yeah.
That is where, let us not underestimate the power of that visual. It's the same like red stop, green go, black, white. Let's use that sensory input really, because it is powerful. And again, sometimes we don't even need to be told those things. We absorb it subliminally because we are conscious that different things mean different things. Different colors mean different colors. And the same way, was it Walker's Crisps who changed the colour of cheese and onion from green to blue or something?
Yes.
I was like, what are you doing? What? Like, I have no idea what was going on in their head marketing wise, or maybe maybe they felt everything needed to be changed. We just know that green is cheese and onion, and that's not the way it's supposed to be. And why should it be green? I don't know why all that was about, but that was such a shock to so many people.
Yeah, I've even got the plug that you shouldn't be switched off further away from the wall. So there's two plug sockets, and the one that you shouldn't touch is behind a pole. So you have to kind of maneuver to get to it. So it's like so many things to say, don't touch this plug.
Yes. Yeah. And so you've got your physical, you've got your proprioception, you've got your tactile, you've got to reach out further, you've got to negotiate, you've got a motor plan. It's just more awkward, and that's perfect. More awkward, a different color, excellent.
Right. So that's us moving house. I just thought, a real example. It was what you've been through. It was hellish at times. But I did for the first time do stuff and think, I've got to talk to Anne about this, because there's a sensory element to this, which I perhaps would never have so easily have thought this is sensory. I'd have thought I'm just tired. But actually there's another element. I think that's why I'm enjoying these so much, because there are things that we can do for our senses which can make such a large difference. It's almost like a force multiplier. You can do a small thing, and yet you can have such a exponentially bigger effect just by doing something.
Yeah. And I'm really fascinated to see where these conversations go and to see what happens, because actually the more we tease out, we often haven't spoken. We've often taken it in a very clinical way, because that's most of our training, and we've done the neuroscience and we've done the therapeutic, techniques and all the rest of it. And it stayed within that world. Whereas now it's just like, this needs to get out. This is every single person that this affects. And if it can help in whatever circumstances folks are in, then this is news, and this is information, and this is a mindset change that would be really, really helpful for people.
Actually, just before we move on to your Santé Sensory Centre, Peter one day had nothing to do. We'd worked really hard. We'd unpacked everything pretty much, and everything in the house was a mess, but it was basically done. And he basically spent the whole day saying, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do, because he'd been working so hard for so long. All of a sudden he doesn't. And, we're not there saying, do this, do this, do this. And he was just left. But I wondered whether it wasn't so much, I don't know what to do, as kind of brain healing. I'm not quite sure how you word that, but just a little bit of nourishment for the brain of just allowing it to rejuvenate, just because he hasn't got to do something.
Yeah, it is hard. I have also felt the intensity of just needing to get things done. And and then there's a point where the brain says, woof, it doesn't have those resources. I think the brain, when it's in a good place, when it's in a sensory healthy place, is able to think, is able to think of ideas, is able to bring inspiration, is being able to process things well, is to amalgamate emotions well. And when you don't have that, or when your brain has been like boof, 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 it's just been that constancy from external, from internal, from choices, which is like higher order brain stuff and lower order brain stuff. The brain has just been massively, I don't know how you'd compare it computer wise, but it really is an overload. It is an overload. And therefore there has to be times of just unplug and not put pressure on yourself, not put expectations, because if you don't do that, then the brain will just stop as well. And for some people, that is quite a long-term thing, when people have struggled for years and have pushed themselves for years. And that's where the importance of taking rest, of unplugging from society, if that's what people need for a day a week, unplugging from certain things, just give your body and your brain chance to heal, to restore, to recalibrate, to settle. and be in a healthy place to be able to cope with what life will throw at it and what it will have to cope with.
That actually makes me think of when you look at the Genesis chapter 1, you look at the order of, you talked about order at the start, about how God created the world in 6 days, and on the seventh day he rested. And there's a seventh day. We usually would think of that as a Sunday. And I know some of my wife's colleagues are really exhausted and tired, but they're working on a Sunday and a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. And, you need to stop at some point. And actually God has put something in order for us to have that rest, because on the Sabbath day, the Sunday, you wouldn't do your work and you would do everything completely different. And it's at the most simplistic of levels, whether you're of faith or not, whether you're a church-going person or not, that seventh day is radically different from the other 6, which is that moment every 7 days in order that you can actually have a rest. And God's ordained that for us because he cares about us.
I think that's really powerful. And regardless of what that looks like, because I remember when I had my children, I thought, crumbs, I'm homeschooling and I'm with them all the time. I don't get a day of rest from my children. So I thought there has to be something. What does it mean to have a day of rest then? Yes. So I have really, ever since that time, ever since that beginning, and particularly since I've been, working and as a mum and everything else and trying to work out spiritually where I sit within that and what that means to me, and having a day that's set apart, that I literally switch off my work things. I'm still active, I'm still doing things, but I do things differently one day a week. And that's what causes me to have a day that is set apart, that is different, and that gives me that chance to take a step away from the work that I absolutely love. But it is important. It is still work. It is still what my job is, what my profession is, even if it is a passion. So it's important to take a step away from that and do something different. And obviously, spiritually, if for those who have faith, we then put it in an area of focus of worship and so on. But it's like that break from doing what is regular. Just allow your brain to do different things and to think different things, to process things differently. One day a week is really, really, really healing. And I think, really, really important. And it is definitely something that I adhere to for 24 hours.
Brilliant.
And just, change.
I've got a metaphor. It's really good for the brains to go and look at the sea, because it's effectively impossible to focus. So it allows your eyes to rest and it allows your brain to rest. In the same context, taking that seventh day of rest, for me, it's a bit like going standing at the coast, looking at the sea. It's just relaxing and it's resting, because you're looking at something you can't necessarily focus on. And we can't actually focus on God because he's everywhere. So we can't see all of him. So there's a little metaphor that popped into my mind.
And I think there's something about the sea. It's just a phenomenal thing as well.
Right. Let's just touch on Santé Sensory Centre. So that's opened. You've been open for a week and a half, or is it half a week? I've forgotten.
Last Thursday. So Liberation Day in Jersey, yes. Which is when we were freed. So 9th of May. Yep, that was open day. But I had 4 weeks. It's like yourself. There was notice that no longer could all my occupational therapy equipment be in storage. It needed to come out, and it was a question of, right, okay, where is it coming out to? So looking around, finding a place, getting things set up, and then thinking, well, let's just open and see where things go. I have a lot to sort out still, but it's just so lovely to be able to have a space and say, you are welcome.
And I love that it's on Hope Street.
Oh.
You opened on Liberation Day in Hope Street. How many metaphors can you get from that? It's like mind exploding, isn't it?
And so I put on the door, knowing that was going to be happening, because I knew I needed a deadline. If I didn't have a deadline for opening, then who knows when it would have happened. And Liberation Day has always been really precious, because it is a day of freedom. So on the door of my Santé Sensory Centre is helping you thrive in sensory health, hope, and freedom. Oh. And I know you've picked up on sensory freedom before, and that came out in one of our prayer meetings. And that wasn't me that said it. It was one of the team that was praying into that. And I thought, oh, that was powerful. But it's about sensory health, I think, is the first and foremost. But hopefully it does give people hope for the future. And it can free people from feeling that they are in a prison, because we have had that. I hear that. It is really, really hard for some people, and they do feel they are in a prison with how they perceive the world, but also how it's affecting their family and those that are around them. It's a really horrible place. It's a really hard place for some people, and it's how can we bring freedom into their mindset, into their life, in little ways. I think it's maybe something we could continue on and talk about, just the difference between being in prison but being a prisoner. There are differences in that, and a lot of it is how you change the mindset of how you see life and how you respond to things.
I'm writing that down for next time. Difference between being in prison and being a prisoner. So what can people expect from Santé then? If they come down to your centre, what is it that you've got going on at the moment? I know you've got plans, and it's very new, so there's lots of ideas and things haven't settled. But what sort of things can people sort of look to expecting and looking forward to?
Yeah, well, first of all, the actual therapy, the treatment, but people have to book in for that, because I can't have people walking off the street coming in just for sessions. There are places to actually book in to get some proper occupational therapy, proper working, but mostly working online. I need folk to connect online, because my heart is still to equip and empower others. I do feel that's my calling. That's what I love to do. That's what I really thrive to do. So it's very much equipping, empowering them. They connect with the online sensory super system, and then they get the centre bookings where I can complement what they are learning. I never want to be someone to take responsibility for anybody and everybody. It's the sense of, I will support you, but you are the one that needs to take control. You take control. You can take responsibility of your life, and I'll give you as much support as I possibly can, but I'm not going to do it for you. I will help with that therapy to complement and to do things that I can as a qualified therapist. But there's so much that people can do when they know what to look for. But if they go to the AnneLaureJackson.com/centre, then they'll see where the opportunity is to connect to both the online, and then from that, they can then actually get bookings into the centre to see me. But hopefully, yeah, we're connecting with charities, we're connecting with other families, we're connecting with other social workers, we're just connecting with all adult services, those with learning disabilities. Who knows? It is again, yeah, really interesting to see what happens to that space and where it goes.
Fantastic. And I've really missed these chats, and I'm glad that we're back and we can use my own misery and pain of the last 4 to 6 weeks-ish as an example, because, hey, life is real. And I was thinking about what you do, and I think it's a bit like when you're in the water and you're thrashing around in water in a swimming pool or whatever, there's bubbles flying everywhere. But I remember once somebody said, if you want to know which way's up to the surface, because people can get confused, you need to be still and calm for long enough to see the bubbles, because bubbles always go up. And I kind of see the way that I sort of see what you're doing is just helping someone just to be still for a moment and calm just long enough to see the direction of the bubbles, just to look up. Because sometimes you can be looking down and you don't know where you're going, and it's like you're orientating, a bit like a gyroscope, I suppose. You're just helping people just to be paused, calm, just long enough to say, just look up. There's the surface. That's what I think.
Beautiful.
Thank you, Anne. If you want to know more about Anne Laure Jackson, you want to know more about the Santé Sensory Centre on Jersey, then you can find out that from our website, pure247radio.org, pure247radio.org/ALJ. And that will give you all the information you need for Anne Laure Jackson. Anne, thank you. And let's, I'm looking forward to more of this. It's great.
It is so good to be back. Good to be back.
It's cool. Right, I will leave you to the rest of your day and getting stuff sorted for your centre and all the other million things that you do. Have a sensory healthy day. Bye for now.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Pure 24/7 Radio is listener supported, which means we are free, online and always pure because of the generous support of our listeners. If you would like to contribute financially, please visit pure247radio.org. If you'd like to find out how we use your money, please visit the Our Cost section. Any donation of any size will help keep us on air and broadcasting for free. Thank you.